Hello and welcome to my world and another video as we continuing to go through my DVD collection. And like last time, we're going to go through two bags of stuff because reasons, just simple enough, just easier for me to do it like that. So we're going to have like I think we're going to have some wrestling and various other stuff here. So grab from the right, drop to the left. Speaking of wrestling, we're opening up with XPW's Wrestling Free Fall, which I'm gonna need the glasses for this one. This particular event featured the Vic Rhymes versus New Jack Scaffold match. Lizzie Borden versus Veronica Kane in a like a buck nudity match. XPW champion Webb versus GQ Money. Chaos, the XPW TV champion versus Angel and Chris Hamrick, and a few other matches as well. So, what a first thing to actually talk about here. The Eddie Guerrero cheating, death, stealing life story, and of course, this became a major collector's edition when Guerrero died. And one could also say, because of those circumstances and everything, it was the first. It unintentionally became the first example of WWE Eddie exploitation, with the exploitation of Eddie Guerrero. And considering the recent news about his widow Vicky Guerrero and what she's been pulling, and Eddie exploitation is alive and well. Speaking of exploitation, the Road Warriors, the life and death of the most dominant tag team in wrestling history at the time, because I think that the claim is now we can go to like the Dudley Boys or Team 3D. This came out after the passing of Road Warrior Hawk, so a lot of it is Road Warrior Animal and Paul Ellering's take on things without Hawk's point of view. So, if memory serves me right. Speaking of WWE propaganda, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, the hit piece that the WWE put out on Jim Hellwig. And you want to show how vindictive Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and the like of them are. And is a great example of Vince McMahon's mindset as it relates to, if he can't get things done his way, he will ruin whatever it is as long as he gets his way. Case in point, all the positive stuff that the WWE managed to accomplish after he retired last year. This is a great example of that. Just a peek more into the mindset of Vince McMahon and everything. Let's get more of this wrestling stuff out the way here. TNA Destination X, March 13th in 2005, which featured Jeff Jarrett defending NWA title against Diamond Dallas Page. The Ultimate X match between AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Ron Killings, and Elix Skipper. First blood match between Kevin Nash and Kip James. I don't even remember that. Jeff Hardy versus Abyss. Monty Brown versus Triton. Dustin Rhodes versus Raven in a bull rope match. Chris Sabin, Chase Stevens versus Chris Stevens. And America's Most Wanted and the Three Alike Crew versus Team Canada. Of all the matches on here, I don't remember. Like, Kip James was Billy Gunn. Being in a feud with the first blood match with Kevin Nash. This isn't wrestling. This is actually a concert DVD. This is Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos, which Like whoever, like bad lighting in here. Like what is? Normally would read the set list off the back. Oddly enough, it's not on here. The interior booklet does not have it. So, the set list. Take it so hard, how I wish I could have stood you up. Too rude, make no mistake, time is on my side. Big enough, whip it up. Locked away, struggle, happy, and connection. This was done, or at least was filmed, I think after the first of Keith Richards' solo albums, which I think was called Talk is Cheap. I'm not 100% sure. WWE No Mercy. This was October 2004. JBL versus The Undertaker. Big Show versus Kurt Angle. Eddie Guerrero versus Luther Reigns. Booker T versus John Cena. Paul London versus Billy Kidman. Kenzo Suzuki and Rene Dupree versus Rey Mysterio and Rob Van Dam. Rico, Charlie Haas, and Miss Jackie versus the Dudley Boys and Dawn Marie. And then Spike Dudley versus Nunzio. What a mediocre card that was. This was Survivor Series. Also 2004. JBL versus Booker T. Orton, Benoit, Jericho, and Maven versus Triple H, Edge, Batista, and Gene Snitsky. Spike Dudley versus Rey Mysterio versus Chavo Guerrero versus Billy Kidman. Eddie Guerrero, Big Show, Rob Van Dam, and John Cena versus Kurt Angle, Carlito, Mark Jindrak, and Luther Reigns. Is that team 4 versus 5? It was, because that would have been. Oh, that's 4 versus 4. I'm not sure why I misread that. Undertaker versus Heidenreich, Shelton Benjamin versus Christian, Trish Stratus versus Lita. And but that wasn't the retirement year of Trish. Let's see what we got here. Oh, okay. I only ever managed to get 3 of these. The WWE WrestleMania anthology. So I've only ever managed to find in stores volumes 1 through 3. So that's WrestleManias 1 through 5, WrestleManias 6 through 10, and WrestleManias 11 through 15. So I've never. This was also a big time when since WWE was putting out a lot more anthology sets, so this is before the WWE Network, but it also was like one of the first major times that a lot of noticeable editing was being done as it relates to the music. Matter of fact, getting that box set for WrestleMania, the Volume 1, I was like watching WrestleMania 3, and the music for Hillbilly Jim's Don't Go Messing with a Country Boy is edited on that version of it with some generic banjo styled music. And I end up meeting Hillbilly Jim at a convention later that year here in South Jersey, and asking him about it. And according to him, it was just like a music license thing, even though it was a song done for the WWE. It's like, because it was on the wrestling album, it's a whole different music licensing rights. So for those wondering, that's what. There you go. WWE Diva South of the Border, which was part of the annual WWE Diva exploitation sets, and I bought a few. The Raw Diva Search, which saw Christy Hemme winning, and then the WWE basically wasting her potential, and was actually a sign to come, as with how badly the WWE would handle the Diva Search winners. Ashley Massaro, most notoriously. TNA Bound for Glory, October 23rd, 2005. Which Jeff Jarrett versus Rhino. Actually, that was spoilers, because it was a battle royal to face Jeff Jarrett, because Kevin Nash, I think he had like heart palpitations or something that same day. AJ Styles versus Christian Daniels, Matt Bentley versus Peter Ray Williams versus Chris Sabin, America's Most Wanted versus The Naturals, Samoa Joe versus Jushin Thunder Liger, Abyss versus Rhino versus Sabu versus Jeff Hardy. Damn, Rhino worked 3 times this night. So this is basically, one could argue that this was Rhino's biggest show in terms of a featured night for him. What we got here? Monty Brown versus Lance Hoyt, 3 Live Crew versus Team Canada. Sanjay Dutt versus Alex Shelley versus Austin Aries versus Roderick Strong. And the Diamonds in the Rough versus Sonny Siaka, Apollo, and Shark Boy. Basically, this got everyone major on the card. WrestleMania 20, which is of course the night Benoit, wins that triple threat match. And so this is the unedited version. What was the card on this folio? Yeah, Big Show versus John Cena, RVD, Booker T versus the Dudleys versus Garrison Cade and Jindrak versus La Resistance, Jericho versus Christian, which also was Trish's first epic heel turn, Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution, Sable and Tori Wilson versus Stacy Keibler and Miss Jackie, Chavo gauntlet match: Chavo, Jamie Noble, Vic Funaki, Ultimate Dragon, Rey Mysterio, Nunzio, Tajiri, Shannon Moore, and Billy Kidman. Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi versus the APA versus the Basham Brothers versus the World Greatest Tag Team. Victoria versus Molly Holly. Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle. Undertaker versus Kane. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H versus Chris Benoit. Only enough because of how it's a 2-disc set, but the card is like the majority of the matches are on disc 1. So it was like those weird early years. I think it was on disc 3. Oh, more stuff of WWE DVDs. Let's see here. The Day the Sky Exploded. It's a movie from 1957. I know I've seen this once, but I don't remember a damn thing about it. Oh, I also had one more. That was at ECW Bloodsport, the most violent matches. 2-disc sets. What is on this one? Oh, what is this? Cactus Jack and Mikey Whip versus Public Enemy. And already it's false advertising. Sandman and Terry Funk versus Cactus Jack and Shane Douglas. Okay, that's justifiable there. Ian Rotten versus Axel Rotten in terms of the most violent matches, that definitely applies. Although the match does live up to the billing of the last names, as it was Rotten. Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis in a Mexican Death Match. Shane Douglas versus Jericho versus Tuco Scorpio versus Pitbull number 2. Tommy Dreamer versus Brian Lee in a weapons match. RVD versus Sabu in a stretcher match. Terry Funk versus Sandman versus Stevie Richards, the main event triple threat match at Barely Legal. Also known as the night that basically screwed up Stevie Richards' throat and coincidentally his spine in more recent days, in months and so forth. Sabu versus Terry Funk in the Born to Be in the barbed wire match. Yeah, that's justifiable. Bueller McKillicuddy versus Bill Alfonso, arguably the most violent match in ECW's history. Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow, Heatwave 98. That does not belong on here. Other than the planned spot of them falling through the stage, there is not much. There's nothing memorable about that match. Taz versus Shane Douglas for the ECW title. That doesn't belong. that's about as generic as a match can be. Dudley Boys versus Spike and Boss Mahoney. That could be on here. Mike Awesome versus Spike Dudley. It's on here mostly for tossing Spike around. Rhino versus Sandman. No. From ECW on TNN. No. Super Crazy versus Tajiri versus Little Greedo, as just to have a representation of the series of 3 raid dances that was taking place. All right. Tommy Dreamer versus C.W. Anderson. Yeah, as the I Quit match. And Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka, but not the good matches, the one from ECW One Night Stand. So it's yeah. The 2004 Hall of Fame ceremony, which was actually, and one could argue, was the best Hall of Fame ceremony that the WWE has released, because every other year became like big arenas and venues and stuff. But this one, they kept it. It was small. It was intimate. It was actually done well. Everyone had time. It was like, that's what the Hall of Fame should be, but the WWE turned it into a big galvanized event, and now it got to the point where it's watered down, where it can't even have its own night. It's backed in it's shoved on the back end of a SmackDown taping. What we got here? Midnight Marquee presents Terror in the Tropics, which features Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and who? Oh, and Lon Chaney Jr. So this came out in 2005, so probably using some stock footage. Terror Tales Volume 2, which features, what, Dr. Vampire and Death Kiss. And I think I actually watched Dr. Vampire. Or at least I've just seen it before. Again, I'm not 100% sure in that regard. This case does not close fully. What else we got here? We got Dragnet. So Dragnet as a series was released on multiple ways over the years. It's like the series got released on DVD so many different ways, I guess, due to licensing issues and so forth. So okay, what does this? This one does not have any episodes listed, but it has like 90. But it's listed in black and white, but doesn't list the episodes. This one, Dragnet Volume 3. I don't think it's not part of this same set, I don't think. But this one has the Big Phone Call, the Big Cast, the Big False Make, and Big Frank. A lot of things are big. Now, these two are their own separate ones because they're using the same format here. This Volume 1 of this Dragnet set has the Big September, Big 17, Big Show, the Big Break, and the Big Hands. This one has the Big Betty, the Big Thief, the Big Little Jesus, the Big Trunk, and the Big Boys. This stack is going to fall over. I just know it. I just know it. WWE Bad Blood. This is 04. So it's Kane versus Benoit, Michaels versus Triple H, Orton versus Shelton Benjamin, La Resistance versus Benoit and Edge. For the tag team titles, Jericho versus Tyson Tomko, Eugene versus Jonathan Coachman, Victoria versus Gail Kim versus Lita versus Trish Stratus. So basically, this was what, to put the belt on women's title on Trish, and also basically cementing, really getting those whatchamacallit, those seeds in as it relates to Edge's heel turn, which was happening or it was fully cemented. I can't remember the exact timeline. Edge really would turn heel in 2005, but a lot of like Edge beat going heel was kind of like starting to be cemented here. The Great American Bash. This is in 2004, which is Guerrero versus JBL, Rey Mysterio versus Chavo Guerrero, Undertaker versus Dudley Boys, John Cena versus Booker T versus RVD versus Rene Dupree, Billy Gunn versus Kento Suzuki, Hardcore Holly versus Mordecai, Charlie Haas versus Luther Reigns, Tori Wilson versus Sable. Arguably, this could be argued as one of the worst overall shows because of the undercard was so weird and weak. Road to Glory. This was a compilation of featuring a lot of guys who went on to make it big in the early 2000s, who passed through, I guess it's UPW out of California. So this features John Cena as the Prototype versus C.W. Anderson. Gotta love it when these things are written in such a way. Hardcore Kid and Alcatraz versus the Ballard Brothers, who ended up become Heidenreich and Nathan Jones versus Michael Modest and Donovan Morgan. Nova and Frankie Kazarian versus Danny Doring and Roadkill. The Road Warriors versus the Ballard Brothers. Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe versus Tommy Dreamer. Mickey Henderson versus Juventud Guerrera. Horseshoe versus Smelly. Sadaka versus Paul London. The Miz versus Predator. Predator versus Ken Shamrock. Adam Pearce versus DDP. And Chris Masters in a battle royal. At least the guys who would become those. In some cases, some of the characters. But it's not a bad novelty set. Again, seeing matches from like guys early in their careers is always interesting. What we got here? Double Shock Show, Sinew Sinners, and Lenny Bruce starring in Dance Hall Racket. So Sinew Sinners started what? June Colborn, Dan Lloyd, and Beverly Nazaro, 1963. Dance Hall Racket, again starring Lenny Bruce, Timothy Farrow, and Joy Abrams, 1953. So it's like 10 years prior. The Three Stooges' Greatest Hits and Rarities. This is actually similar to the VHS tape I had from way that we talked about when I was going through the VHS tapes. This has what is it? What the? So this has, what the heck is on here? This has at least it's saying it has, the Malice in the Palace, Sing a Song of Sixpence, Disorder in the Court, and Brightest Groom, which is the 4 episodes of the shorts of the Three Stooges that's in the public domain. This also has the Camel Comedy Caravan that was hosted by Ed Wynn. Night for the Party, little known 1934 musical starring Shemp and a Railroad as the lead stooge. And Hollywood on Parade, Jimmy Durante, Ben Turnpayne, and Ten Healy. Oh, so this is I want to have to double check this one because this one is saying it has a lot on it, but it's not matching up with the length of 131 minutes. Three Stooges in color, four shorts, colorized, Disorder in the Court, Brightest Groom, Sing a Song of Sixpence, and Malice in the Palace. Again, those four shorts, because they got released into the public domain due to various things. It's like they were exploited and sold a lot on VHS and DVD. Volume 1 of Radar Men from the Moon. We talked about Volume 2 several weeks ago. Here's the first half of it. I should organize these DVDs and put this with the other one at some point. All right. This one. Next bag. And these are going to be straight movies and stuff. Dennis Quaid, Matthew Fox in Vantage Point. I don't remember a thing about it. Other than the fact that it was recommended to me and I watched it. That was it. Al Pacino and Scarface. Classic movie. The Phantom of the Opera. It was all... it's alright. Bit overproduced as a movie, I think. The unrated extended edition of Doom. And of course, we all know the only good thing about this movie is, of course, when they go into the first person mode. Really, how could they screw this up? How do you take a concept of Doom and screw it up? You just turn it into something it's not. So what's wrong? You accidentally open a portal to hell and you have a bunch of Space Marines trying to do it, and you have one survive at the very end. It's like, what was it? It was like a virus or something. No. The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons. I thought this was a really good movie. And The Bucket List, also a very good movie. One could also say that movie could be called The Bucket List. V for Vendetta. Probably one of the few things. Actually, the only thing I have in my collection is starring Natalie Portman. At least I think. I know, but I thought when I watched this, it was overrated. So I kind of want to sit down and watch it again, just to see if my opinions on it holds up. I actually remember being bored watching it. Flash Gordon. I believe this corrected like a few episodes of the serial, or like a complete story arc. Night of the Living Dead. Again, they were selling these for like 99 cents in my local pharmacy. Okay. This was actually kind of cool. William Shatner's Invasion, Iowa. Where it was like the premise of pretending to make a movie, but it's actually a documentary. It's like an elaborate practical joke. I actually thought this was pretty interesting. With it again, Shatner was doing a lot of reality TV in the mid to late 2000s. Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick film. Like, I saw it in theaters when it came out. Sure, it was disappointing, but at the same time, it's bad in its own way. It's so bad it's good. Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. I actually think this movie did not get enough praise for what it did visually and everything, and really trying to capture like those old serial style stories, almost like Indiana Jones did back in the 80s, but with CGI and everything. I can understand like some of the visuals did not really end up looking all that good, and in comparison to a lot of stuff that was coming out at the same time, but since it was capturing a specific style, I think it was really good. It's a real good adventure, and and it's like I have no problem sitting down and watching it. It's just a real it's a, it's a really good adventure movie. The Rock in the Rundown. I think I only seen this a couple of times and really had no. It didn't really leave an impression on me. As we go back over here, Lost in Translation, starring Bill Murray, excellent movie. Hollywood Homicide, starring Harrison Ford and Josh Hartnett. What a piece of crack film this was. The Mummy Returns. I can safely say this was not a movie I purchased because I've never actually seen The Mummy Returns. The only movie in the Mummy franchise I've seen is The Scorpion King. Hidalgo, I actually thought this was another really good movie that was, I think, is very much underrated. I thought with the great landscapes and all the outdoor exterior shots, the horse race and everything. Again, I thought this was really good. River Phoenix, Ethan Hawke, and Explorers. This was, it's a cute, it's cute for what it is. Not more. I think I talked about this one before. The Get Smart reunion movies. I have. This was made for TV, reuniting the living cast at the time, and I think I have a sealed copy of this somewhere in one of the other earlier bags, which is actually behind here, and so forth. What else we got in here? Never Been Opened, Rocket Ship XM. And I believe this movie has been featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, but this copy is sealed. The anniversary edition, starring Lloyd Bridges and Osa Manson. The peak of Jim Carrey's comedic films with The Mask, because it was all downhill from here afterwards. Because really, has Jim Carrey, because after The Mask, he really tried to get more meta and like method acting is, and then you have like, what was it, The Truman Show, which I thought that was a terrible movie, and Man on the Moon, like this was like my peak in my respect of Jim Carrey as an actor, because it's basically pushed everything that he could do comedically to the absolute limit, and then from there it's like I really had nothing else. There was nothing more that interests me about him. Corpse Bride, it's all right. It's like I would say it's very good. It's good. It's honestly the only thing featuring Johnny Depp I actually own, I believe. At least that I willingly purchased myself. The Maiden Heist. This kind of falls in the same vein as The Bucket List. You have a handful of older actors being brought together for a nice little film. They're not bad guys; they're just bad thieves. And I remember watching it once when I got it, and once with my mom. And it's a caper film, but nothing really sticks out with me. Once a Thief. This is actually the TV pilot for a show I think barely made it into syndication. And that's about as far as I know. Because this is actually a TV pilot. And it's advertised as John Woo's Once a Thief, but it's like I know I purchased it based on the name of John Woo. I'm expecting a big action film and everything. It's like, no, it's a glorified TV pilot. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I enjoyed it. I saw it in theaters with my father. I thought it was a pretty damn good. SOS Coast Guard, featuring 12 the classic serial and 12 lightning episodes. Never watched this, and Men in Black. What can you say more about it? Ken Anderson, also known as Ken Kennedy, starring in Behind Enemy Lines, Colombia. Like I said, I was a big wrestling fan. I grabbed it because the tie-in with the WWE. Wanted to see how Mr. Kennedy could do. They put him front and center on the box and then on the posters and everything. But guess what? He is in a supporting role. Van Helsing. Again, this is another movie. The CGI wasn't really there for it, particularly towards the end in the film's climax between Van Helsing as a werewolf versus Dracula. It wasn't CGI wasn't good enough for what it was ended there, but I think this was actually really good. DC Caps, starring Mr. T, Paul Rodriguez, Adam Baldwin, and various other actors. Again, I had this on VHS. Watched this movie a lot as a kid on VHS. When it finally ended up on DVD, I made sure to get it. Leslie Nielsen in 2001: A Space Travesty, and boy, is this movie a travesty. You know, starting with Leslie Nielsen's turn as Mr. Magoo, like all of his comedic films kind of had like that same like over the top wackiness. Is like, well, like stuff like the Naked Gun and Airplane is like relying more like sharp wit and dialogue. His films became more slapsticky and it didn't quite work. Mila Djokovic in The Messenger. I will defend this movie as a really solid take on the Joan of Arc story. I enjoyed it. For me that is a good solid movie. X-Files: Fight for the Future. I know I have this on VHS, so this copy I never opened up the DVD copy to actually take a look at the bonus features. But it's what is there. Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life. Which one? Did I even have the first Tomb Raider movie starring Angelina Jolie? I don't think so. But I know The Cradle of Life was not as good as the first film. I remember that one as much. Right, and we have a few more here. The Rock and Gridiron Gang, mediocre at best. Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn, Christopher Daniels, and Wedding Crashers. I still to this day do not understand the appeal of this movie because Vince Vaughn is not exactly sympathetic or really likable, and Owen Wilson does come across as very, very annoying to me. Another copy of X-Men. Question is this the 4x3 or the widescreen version? Like, how many copies of this movie do I actually have? Answer is more than enough. I believe this is the widescreen version. And finally, Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Obviously a great movie, cult classic, beyond cult classic. Very quotable. Again, there's a lot of Monty Python stuff actually is. Can't really... So one could say it's the ultimate troll with the ending, but they did that with the exception of what? The troll ending here was like it doesn't really have an ending. Meaning of Life, Life of Brian, Meaning of Life. They had endings of sorts. They had to have musical numbers. Yeah. So, anyway, that will do it for this section here. I got one, two. I know I got a bunch of anime and animation boxes and like stuff involving TV shows, more wrestling stuff as well. So we'll sort through those in the coming weeks. It was probably was it 2, 4, 6, 8. In terms of bags, so it's like potentially it's like 4 more episodes in this particular series of content. I might be miscounting. I know I got 2 bags of stuff I definitely can't show because they fall under a particular category, and the cover arts is not really YouTube friendly. And I kind of pushed it one time on with some as that relates to anime. Anyway, on that note, tighten your friendship bracelets, stay safe, have a good one, and we'll see y'all in the next video.